Picture this. For decades, the Mongol Empire was, well, basically an unstoppable force. We're talking about a sprawling war machine that had conquered kingdoms from China all the way to Eastern Europe. They had earned this chilling reputation for absolute invincibility. But then, right in the confined plains of northern Palestine, a determined army stood directly in their path. The clash that took place at Ain Jalut would become one of history's absolute greatest turning points. Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're unpacking the strategy, the bloodshed, and those fragile moments of pure luck that permanently reshaped the Middle East.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to imagine the intense desperation on the battlefield. It's the 25th of Ramadan. The heat is just blistering, and it's taking a massive physical toll on the fasting Muslim army. Right at the absolute height of combat, the vanguard actually begins to waver under the sheer brutal ferocity of the Mongol cavalry charge. Seeing a potential collapse happening right in front of him, the Mamluk Sultan Qutuz literally throws his helmet into the dirt. He cries out 3 times, "Wa Islama, O Islam." It was this desperate, electrifying plea to his exhausted troops, a stark reminder that their entire civilization was teetering on the brink of annihilation.
Section 1. The Mongol War Machine.
To really grasp the immense pressure of that exact moment, we first have to understand the terrifying adversary they were up against. The Mongols were nomads hailing from the vast Central Asian steppe. Before Genghis Khan, they were just divided tribes, but united, they became an absolute juggernaut, and their background brilliantly illustrates their whole approach to combat. As recorded by Persian historians like Atamalik Javani, their entire military doctrine relied on supreme mobility, incredible horsemanship, and a highly calculated strategy of spreading psychological terror. They didn't just defeat armies, they depopulated resistant cities, essentially paralyzing neighboring regions into surrendering before a single sword was swung.
The ultimate demonstration of this terror had occurred just 2 years prior, during the 1258 sack of Baghdad. Hulagu Khan unleashed a force exceeding 100,000 troops right upon the Abbasid Caliphate's capital. The resulting slaughter was nothing short of catastrophic. Now, while modern scholars do debate the exact numbers, later historical traditions estimate anywhere from 200,000 to over 1 million people dead. The destruction was so thorough, so complete, that eyewitnesses actually claimed the Tigris River ran black with the ink of priceless books dumped straight from the House of Wisdom.
Section 2. Rise of the Mamluks.
So as the Mongols pushed westward into Syria, that unstoppable force met an entirely different kind of society. The word Mamluk literally translates to owned. These guys were elite military slaves, often purchased as boys from the Eurasian steppes, converted to Islam, and rigorously trained to fight. Now here's where it gets incredibly ironic. Let's look at the background of Sultan Qutuz himself. Born of Kipchak Turkic origin, Qutuz was actually captured and enslaved by the Mongols during his youth. But through a merit-based system that valued battlefield skill way above birthright, this former prisoner rose up to command an entire empire against them.
Now, what's really interesting about this elite system is how perfectly it neutralized the Mongol advantage. Because the Mamluks themselves originated from the steppes, they instinctively understood nomadic warfare, but they refined it. Their intense, non-hereditary training in Cairo's hippodromes created this highly disciplined heavy cavalry force. They mastered the exact same composite recurve bows the Mongols used, but they fought with an unyielding unit cohesion that was, quite frankly, often missing in the Mongols' looser auxiliary forces. They were, in every sense, the perfect counterweapon.
Section 3. The Prelude to Battle. By 1259, these two titanic military cultures were on a direct collision course. Hulagu Khan didn't just stop at Baghdad. His massive army swept right into Syria. Even the incredibly formidable citadel of Aleppo fell to Mongol siege engineers by January 1260, and Damascus surrendered shortly after. Hulagu then absorbed the remnants of local Ayyubid forces into his own ranks, bringing the Mongol threat literally right to the doorstep of Egypt.
But then, history pivoted on an unbelievable stroke of luck. Deep in China, the great Khan Möngke died. This suddenly triggered a massive succession crisis all the way back in Mongolia. Hulagu was forced to withdraw the bulk of his army, we're talking over 100,000 men, just to deal with imperial politics. He left behind his trusted general Ketbuqa, but with a severely diminished force of only 10 to 20,000 troops. Suddenly, those impossible odds, they kinda started to shift.
Before leaving, Hulagu had sent envoys to Cairo with a customary Mongol ultimatum. He demanded Qutuz's surrender and openly insulted his slave origins. Well, contemporary Muslim chroniclers detail Qutuz's brutally defiant response. He executed the Mongol envoys on the spot and mounted their severed heads right on Cairo's Bab Zwillah gate. By completely burning his bridges, Qutuz forced his exhausted Egyptian troops and the massive influx of Syrian refugees to stand and fight. It was a total do-or-die mobilization.
Section 4. The Clash at Ain Jalut.
Qutuz wasn't about to wait for the Mongols to invade Egypt. He marched his army north to intercept them. The two forces converged at Ain Jalut, which translates to the Spring of Goliath, located in the Jezreel Valley. The Mamluk command, which included the brilliant vanguard general Baybars, very deliberately chose this exact battlefield. And the geography here was absolutely critical. The valley floor allowed for controlled, direct cavalry engagements, while the surrounding hills and woodlands provided the perfect cover to completely hide the true numbers of the Mamluk army.
Let's move through the timeline and see how this builds into one of the most brilliant traps in military history. First, Baybars led the vanguard out to initiate contact. Then, he deliberately executed a feigned retreat, which, ironically, was a signature Mongol steppe tactic. The overconfident Mongol commander Ketbuqa swallowed the bait, hook, line, and sinker. He aggressively pursued Baybars' decoy force deep into the narrow valley. Once Ketbuqa was fully trapped by the terrain, Qutuz unleashed the hidden main army from the hills, ambushing the Mongols from every single side.
This tactical trap was devastating. Trapped in the confined, tight spaces of the valley, the famous Mongol horse archer mobility was rendered completely, utterly useless. They were forced into close-quarters combat against the much heavier, highly cohesive Mamluk cavalry. Ketbuqa was killed in the brutal fighting, and the Mongol forces completely collapsed and were routed. Just like that, in a single afternoon, the Mongol aura of absolute invincibility was permanently shattered.
Section 5. The Bloody Aftermath.
So, the battle was a monumental triumph for the Islamic world. But the cutthroat nature of the Mamluk political system meant the bloodshed was far from over. The Mamluks marched triumphantly back toward Cairo, actually parading Ketbuqa's head as a trophy. But they didn't all make it back together. During a hunting excursion just weeks after saving their civilization, General Baybars and his allied emirs violently ambushed and assassinated Sultan Qutuz. Baybars, the great hero of the vanguard, literally stabbed his own commander in the back to seize the throne.
You might be wondering, why on earth would they murder their victorious leader? Well, in Mamluk politics, power definitely wasn't hereditary. It was based entirely on raw personal ambition and patronage. Qutuz had made some big promises before the battle, specifically promising Baybars the governorship of Aleppo, which he then failed to fulfill. Add to that bitter disputes over how the massive Mongol spoils were being distributed, plus the underlying steppe warrior culture where power is taken by force, and Qutuz's fate was sealed. Baybars swiftly usurped the throne without much opposition, and he immediately began consolidating his own empire.
Section 6. Legacy and Modern Debates.
So the crucial point is, how do we accurately measure the historical weight of 1260? Traditional history, which was largely shaped by later chroniclers like al-Makrizi and Ibn Kathir, points to Mamluk tactical brilliance as the definitive shield that saved civilization. However, modern historians like Reuven Hamitai and Peter Jackson look at the broader data. They argue that the internal Mongol succession crisis, combined with the massive logistical overextension of trying to feed 100,000 horses in the Levant, is what truly stopped the empire. In this view, Ketbuqa's defeat was really just a symptom of a temporarily fragmented Mongol state, rather than a permanent reversal of their military superiority.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for today. Did the Mamluk heavy cavalry save the world at Ain Jalut, or did the sheer scale and messy internal politics of the Mongol Empire cause it to simply defeat itself? Regardless of which perspective you lean toward, there is absolutely no denying the profound legacy of this clash. Ain Jalut proved unequivocally that the Mongols could bleed, and it established the Mamluks as the dominant power in the Middle East for centuries. It's a stunning reminder that the entire course of human history often hinges on an incredibly fragile, fleeting balance of tactical brilliance, political betrayal, and pure, unpredictable luck. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.